Now let's turn to what I think is a very kind of telling clue as to how to referee among these different possibilities. And this is the phenomenon of the unindicted co-conspirator. You point out in your article that there appear to be 20, but there could be more, who unindicted co-conspirators in this operation. So by unindicted co-conspirator, we of course mean people who participated in the operation. They did bad stuff. They would normally be criminally charged. And by the way, this is against the backdrop of Merrick Garland and other people saying, we're going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to go after everybody. This is a shock and awe operation. We're going to hold these people accountable. We're going to send a message. But you're saying the presence of all these unindicted co-conspirators is highly suspicious, even more so because some of these guys, this is not a case where these are the small fish reporting on the big fish. In many cases, these are the guys who did some of the worst stuff. They were actively involved in some of in the planning, the booking of the hotel rooms, the organizing, and in the violence itself.
Exactly. And so yes, that's precisely how the argument is structured. And to give a better sense of how it's all teed up, I think we should start with the so-called shock and awe standard of prosecution. And we talk about that in the Revolver.News article. A gentleman by the name of Michael Sherwin, who is taking the lead on prosecutions, he was interviewed, I think on Dateline, maybe some other show, where he outlines, we're doing a shock and awe standard of prosecution, invoking a phraseology from the Iraq War, which is interesting given the connections with the Patriot Act and all these other things that they're trying to push. Shock and awe standard, to give you a sense of what the shock and awe standard means in practice, I would offer an example of this individual called George Tanios, who is this just, I don't want to say anything disparaging, but he's not a mastermind. Let's put it that way. He's an owner of a sandwich shop. His great offense was he was at the Capitol. He didn't go inside. He was at the Capitol. He had bear spray. His companion wanted to reach for his bear spray to possibly spray officers in the melee. He said, "Are we ready to do it?" George Tanios says, "No, not yet." On the basis of him saying, no, not yet, the government is charging him with conspiracy to assault officer, and he's facing 60 years in prison. So for saying no, not yet to his companion's attempt to get his bear spray to possibly spray an officer, he's facing 60 years. And just as a side point, the whole reason the bear spray was important was it was related to the death of Officer Sicknick in the media narrative. And that's a whole other media narrative that Revolver.News absolutely destroyed. First, they said this Officer Sicknick who died was bludgeoned to death by a fire extinguisher. We reported on that. That's turned out to be untrue. New York Times corrected it. The second narrative that they landed upon was that he died of bear spray. We did a very sophisticated analysis at Revolver.News, a comparative image analysis showing that Officer Sicknick was not sprayed by bear spray because there's a different spray a register that comes out in the image. We turned out to be right on that. We were the only people who did that. Now the official story of Sicknick is that he died of natural causes. So the reason the bear spray was important in relation to Tanios is totally moot now because Sicknick didn't even die from the bear spray.
Well, I found it really telling that Biden, as late as yesterday, was still repeating the Sicknick lie, and in this case, I can't attribute it to his senility. I think this is actually malicious. I want to zoom back in though to some of these unindicted co-conspirators. Would you talk for a moment about the person who's called Person 2? Because here's a guy who is accused of working with the Oath Keepers Thomas Caldwell, and you point out that Caldwell, they're going after Caldwell on a whole slew of charges, but this Person 2 guy was alongside Caldwell from the very beginning. He planned logistics with Caldwell. He stayed in the same hotel room. Caldwell is accused of storming the barricades. This guy was right next to Caldwell, and yet only Caldwell is charged, and person 2, for some mysterious reason, is not named, is not charged at all. And what you're getting at is, why is that? Why is it the case that person 2 has somehow escaped prosecution when his culpability would appear to be the same?
Right. So let me just kind of finish explaining how this is teed up. So we have the shock and awe standard. The reason these other people, person X, person Y, person 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth, and individual, the reason those people, these unindicted persons are important, because our investigative team recognized that compared to this shock and awe standard applied to this poor sandwich shop owner facing 60 years, it's very bizarre that there are all of these unindicted persons in the charging documents who have not been indicted for whatever reason, who seem to have done as bad, if not worse, than the people who are actually charged. And we are exploring the possibility that some of those people may be unindicted as a result of a prior relationship with the federal government. And I think there's two very important sort of caveats to emphasize while I'm here on your show. One caveat is, I'm not making the claim, Revolver.News is not making the claim that every single person who is unindicted, who is referenced in the charging documents, is some federal agent. That's not what we're saying. Secondly, we are not calling for the prosecution of these people. If it turns out, and it very well may turn out, that the unindicted people are not involved with the federal government, and many may not be, I am not saying the government should go after them. I think the shock and awe standard of prosecution itself is an outrage. I'm merely pointing to the discrepancy in standards by saying, if certain people are charged according to that standard, why are the others not? And using that as an entry point to explore the possibility that there could be federal infiltration.
When we come back, we're going to dive more deeply into a key piece of evidence, which is to say the FBI seems to have done this before, which points to a potential FBI culpability here. We'll be right back.